What's up guys, Up and Comer here. We're doing a build guide for Khaimera this time in the jungle. We're going to be building him as a frontliner. So even in the early game we're going to be building with some tanky items. Alright, to start off the build, my typical start is with a Guardian Scythe, which gives you a little bit of sustain. If you start with your E, you get plenty of sustain as you farm up in the beginning, so that you can go out into the field and gank with decent health. Since the changes in version 40, Khaimera is really strong because of how early he can gank, how strong his ganks are, and how well he can sustain throughout the jungle. So that's a definite pickup first thing. And then my first back, I grabbed this Guardian's Ward. It's really important that you have vision all throughout your team. Vision enables kills for your team and it denies kills for the enemy team. So it's really important that you have vision early. So my first item with my first 3 points is this. And then I start completing the Guardian Scythe to give me a little bit more damage. Now early game I also like to pick up a spiked bone plate. So I have 2 minor guards and a minor strike on here, which gives me just that little bit that I need to live through some of the mid-game skirmishes. I also picked up a Thorn Greenweave with 2 minor barriers and 1 minor strike. Just a little bit of damage and a little bit of tankiness with all of our stats in the beginning. So those 4 items start my early game off, as well as maybe the occasional strike token or Hunter's Drink, just for added sustain, which you can use in fights. It's not just necessary to use it when you're clearing the jungle. It's really good to start off your stacks of health regen in fights. But going towards our late game build, the first item I like to pick up after I finish my mid game build is a Sadamon Edge, and I put 6 points of additional damage on it. So this gives us a really good spike into mid game, where we're already reasonably tanky because of our spiked bone plate and Thorn Greenweave. So going right to the damage. Also with our Guardian's Ward, we have damage and just a little bit of health. Now we can start picking up our other items. I like to pick up a Thermobond fairly early into the mid game after I've picked up my Adamant Edge and filled out my Guardian's Ward. It gives me a little bit of ability damage. Casters often enough will shine in the mid game. Their kits are usually really good for assassinating a single target or managing the entire team fight. Either way, they're going to be in your way. So the Thermobond makes it really nice. You can survive any of the initial stuns that they might throw your way, any of the initial roots or anything like that. And often enough you lose your stacks from your passive, your stacks of health regen, when you get stunned like that. So this gives you some immediate stacks so you can keep on going, stay tanky in the team fight. And then the rest of the build is fairly standard. My other item, my go-to item, is a Madspore Stash. Gives me tons of armor, as well as giving me the passive aura of ability damage, which is really nice. Then we have a Venom Shell for additional armor and damage. And then we finish out the build with a Tempered Plate for just a little bit more tankiness late game. So on the front line, you're going to be really strong. You're going to build up lots of stacks as you auto attack, and you're able to keep on going in fights. And when you can isolate a target, and when you can isolate a single target out from a team fight, you can take him down as well with this build. Has a lot of damage. So let's get into the gameplay and we'll check it out. Let's see how it works. So it's standard start. I go here so that I can see both the entrances to my jungle. I can watch for invades. You don't see it very often, but you do sometimes get an invade. With your first clear, you want to finish at about 2 minutes and 40 seconds so that you can contest the river buff on the right hand side. Often enough you can catch the mid laner going for that buff and maybe get an early kill, but even if you don't, just securing that buff, keeping it out of the hands of the other mid laner is a really good tactic. You definitely want to be contesting buffs all throughout the game. I mean, and it opens up opportunities for you to get kills around the map, as well as denying opportunities for the enemy team to get the kills around the map. So we waited our spot watching for invades till about 1 minute 10 seconds, and then we go back and start our camps. With Khaimera, you don't have to actually kite the camps. You can just go ahead and auto them down. Make sure you don't miss any autos. You'll build up your stacks of health regen and you'll be absolutely fine. So at the beginning of this game, we actually had 2 supports locked in on our team, which is kind of unfortunate. And one of the supports decided to take the off lane. Richter took off lane, but he was calling for help constantly throughout the beginning of the game. So FaZe actually went over there, and she'll spend the rest of the game over there. So with Khaimera and the sustain that we have because of the stacking on his E, 2 minutes and 40 seconds rolls around and we've got over half health, the green buff, and we're ready to go ahead and take this last minion before we get the river buff. And this is a standard start almost every single game. Once we have the buff, we can look to gank somewhere. Unfortunately, in this situation, I have to go to the right lane and defend the right lane, so I can't gank with the buffs that I have. Now, when you're backing lanes up like this, it's important that you leave as soon as your team gets there. Whoever's laning in that lane, as soon as that person gets there, you're not taking their farm, so just go ahead and back off. And please, as a jungler, don't be taking the gold bug on your side, on the safe lane side. Leave that for your support and your ADC. Definitely take the gold buff on the opposite side of the map if you can, whenever you can. But again, right here, we're just securing river buffs before we go from lane to lane looking for picks. Level 3, you're really, really strong. And typically, if you have room to jump to somebody twice before they get under turret, you can secure a kill. Right here, we're able to jump the first time, he gets rooted. And then we can just jump the second time, chase him right through the turret, and secure the kill with a couple of autos. Even if the FaZe hadn't have pulled us out here, we would have been able to run through the turret to the other side and get out safely most of the time. Very rarely is the enemy team quick on the rotation enough to catch you during that, but this FaZe was doing really well. She was able to pull us out, so hey, that's a bonus. And we got the gold bug on our way out. Definitely to be checking that on your way out every time to see when it's up and get the timer on it so that you can be there to take it. So on your first back, make sure you're getting a ward. You definitely want to be spreading vision as soon as possible. Vision will enable so many opportunities to catch people in rotations, which equal easy kills, or it also can deny the enemy team of being able to capitalize on your team being in a position or going through a rotation, so it denies those kills from them. It's a good habit also before you back to make sure you've emptied out all of your wards. So in this situation, as I'm farming my jungle, I'm keeping a constant eye on my mini-map. I want to know what the enemy team is doing. The timer's about to come up for the river buff, so I head that direction. After securing the buff, I'm able to go ahead and jump on Bellica, catching her in rotation, which is what I was talking about earlier, and this equals a kill. I have plenty of room to jump here. 2 jumps and she's dead. And this is the river buff we're really looking for. Having invisibility anytime throughout the game on Khaimera is fantastic. You can definitely murder some people with this. You don't want to jump to them. You want to run up to them and spam your Q on them. And then jump to them to finish the kill. Works like a charm. Getting the timer on their gold buff. It's not there. Warding so that we don't get flanked. Always warding for your team is a good idea. Honestly, there's times I go to a lane looking for a gank and all I do is ward. There's no gank there, and that's perfectly okay with me. If it keeps my teammates from getting killed, it's fine. So as the jungler, you end up covering lanes a lot for people when they back or when they're ganking the other lane, especially mid lane. Mid lane should be roaming a lot throughout the mid game. So you'll be covering mid lane a lot. But again, it's really important that you leave as soon as they show up so they can get the farm. You have plenty of farm in your jungle that you should be getting, because as you get farm in your jungle, you're filling up your amber link, and that's going to spread the CXP around to the rest of your team. Now the reason I placed a ward before I went ahead and took this green buff is because I don't know where Khaimera is on the map at that particular second, so I want to make sure he's not there to capitalize on getting the green buff. Often enough with Khaimera, you want to ward your own jungle. If we would have had the mana for a second jump, that would have been an easy kill on Bellica. I'm camping mid because I've recognized that Bellica likes to push up past the river a lot. She's typically out of position. So I'm trying to get some free early kills. And right here I'm just grabbing the timers on the river buffs. I don't have the mana to pull off a successful gank here, especially on a Greystone, so I'm just applying some pressure to back him off of the lane. Just going around the map putting out fires before they start, really. So on our second back, we want to be building into damage. We want to fill out our jungle item, get it up to 6 points, and then we can pick up our first mid-game tank item, which is a spiked bone plate. It's up to you which item you picked up first. You can go into ability armor if you feel like the enemy mid laner, or maybe there's an offlaner that does ability damage. If they're getting ahead, if they're getting fed, you might want to pick up that. But more often than not, I go with the spiked bone plate over the, what is it, thorn greenweave? We're looking for an easy kill here, but unfortunately we can't get it. Now the yin gets baited by us and goes in, but Greystone doesn't stick around. We chase just a little bit past the minion wave, and then we don't go any further. You definitely don't want to be chasing kills super far. At least not in this point in the game. Later on in the game, it's in your benefit to chase kills as Khaimera with his jump, because he can lock down targets over and over and over again. But at this point we don't want to get rotated on. So we're doing the same thing we did before. We're just going from one lane to another, securing the river buffs if we can along the way, looking for ganks. Any low target is a dead target for us. So I was actually going to go back and farm the jungle in this situation, let these two push up by themselves, but they wanted me to come back because they were flanking. So I ward to make sure we can't get rotated on, and we just jump into their turret. It's really important that you're communicating with your team and that you're cooperating with your team. If you don't agree with the play, maybe you want to go do something else. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's not a bad idea to go ahead and, in that situation, dive the turret. And so now we got the 2 kills off of it. We're also going to be able to get the turret, and we didn't lose anything for it, except the enemy Greystone has been pushing this entire time. So he's doing what a good Greystone should be doing, and he's applying counter pressure. Even though we got the turret, this should be a kill. Except this Greystone got jukes. He ends up completely juking us here. And he's just going to run through half of our team and get out. That's okay, there's plenty of other juicy targets. Jump on the closest target to us, and we can just keep up the chase. We don't have to let him get out. Now this choke point is really dangerous. You want to stop here before you go out. You definitely don't want to rush out of that choke point because they're going to throw everything they have at you. So kind of a long, drawn-out fight, but in any of these team fights, your job as Khaimera primarily is to jump on the target that your ADC is targeting, or jump on any target that your team is focusing in general. You just want to be applying the DPS to any of the key targets and focus on DPS down together. But any target that gets low after that point, you just want to be jumping on them. Between the slow that you have and the burst on your Q, you can single out low health targets really easily. I mean, if you have your ult, and it's an instant kill, but we're just going to be looking for any targets throughout any of these fights that we can DPS down as fast as possible. Phase Khaimera combo is pretty much GG. It's ridiculously strong. She's able to pull me in, she ults me, and it's an easy 2 kills. I'm completely oblivious to the Greystone. Or the Kalari, but she's able to pull me into the fight so that we can keep focusing the targets we need to focus, keep the push on. Unfortunately for the enemy team, they keep on filing into these fights 2 or 3 at a time when we have a numbers advantage, and so we can kill them and be reset and ready to kill the next group before they show up every time. But in situations like this, typically I would want to be setting our side lanes and pushing mid lane together. So the fact that we're winning these skirmishes early and we really aren't having to pay that much attention to our side lanes is a plus. Now in this situation, we've gotten the turret. The best call here is to fall back. Let the enemy team clear mid while you take Raptors. And I'm calling this out to my team over and over. But unfortunately, the team doesn't want to come to Raptors. They want to keep on shoving mid. They want to keep the fight up mid, which you're going to find in a lot of solo queue games. But that's okay. If that's what your team wants to do, you want to make sure that you're there. Flaming or telling people that they're making the wrong call or anything like that, honestly, most of the time that's not going to help you. Flaming is never going to help you, but in this situation, we're just going to support our team mid. So since we have the Richter, we're letting him initiate, and we're jumping in on people after he's initiated, just cleaning up low health targets. When you're Khaimera and you're playing with a phase, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to whether or not you have the tether. In that situation, we didn't have the tether, so I wanted to fall back right away. And when the Kalari ults me, I immediately get my jump ready so that I can apply a slow to him so that I can run away and let the rest of my team clean up, or I can burst him down. Luckily, I see when he comes in, he's low health, so we're able to burst him down, and I get away. My offlaner's trying to steal my green buff. That's not going to happen. That's fine. But the team's still fighting mid, so we're going to keep on going. This definitely isn't my preferred way to play the game, but in this situation, these guys keep on getting out of position, so we're making these fights work. I've been able to isolate a target here. This is just an easy kill. It doesn't matter who it is. ADC, mid laner, off laner, it really doesn't matter. As Khaimera being ahead late game, you can chase anybody down. So you should always be trying to turn your kills into objectives, whether that means raptors, a turret, whether that means river buffs and more fighting afterwards. But you don't want to be too greedy. As soon as we can get this turret, we get out. We don't stay. In a lot of games that I play, I find that we're able to turn a disadvantage into an advantage because the enemy team will stay too long. They'll just push their lead, getting too greedy. So don't be that team. Don't let your team make that mistake. So now we've completed our early build and most of our ward. Being this far ahead, typically I would say in the mid game you should be going for a defensive item, something that'll give you some more sustain in fights, or maybe something that'll help with CC. But if you're this far ahead, honestly you could go with your Adamant Edge and just get more damage. Your mid-game tanky stats will be alright until the late game, and you're going to be building that stuff anyway, so. I'm almost positive in this situation I was calling my team over to Raptors again, but they didn't want to come. Honestly, it's not an advantage. We need to win. But still, in this situation, it's in your best interest to seize all the advantages you can. I mean, that's an extra 3 card points for somebody, typically your ADC, but with green buff, I could actually go solo it right now. And the enemy team forfeits. GG.